Good evening. To have this discussion in the mind wellness center of my gym after a workout. So, a lot of you guys might suffer PTSD, trauma, stuff like that. When I was over at Fort Bragg, I had a side project I was working on, and I was kind of researching, figuring out how soldiers, when we go into combat and we face firefights, how we can stay in a peak state when faced with potential death and the fog of war. And that brought me to the neurology department, and I got to talk to the head of the department at that time over at Harvard University. Just exchanges on emails and some quick talks about how meditation can affect brainwaves. Now, back then I was only concerned about combat, and I didn't care about how to apply it anywhere else. Well, recently I revisited some of that data, and I can see that when you have anxiety, trauma-based anxiety, be it PTSD or just generalized anxiety, what's happening is your brain is actually functioning on a different wavelength. It's what's called high beta wavelengths. If you look at a brain scan, it's very erratic and high arousal, but I don't mean arousal in a good way, like sexual, more or less agitation, okay? A highly agitated state is where anxiety will put you. PTSD is a form of anxiety. And so when there are external stressors load up on you, it can put you in an anxious state. Your brain is actually functioning at this high beta state. It makes you hyper aggressive, angry, vigilant. And then now apply that into your relationship. Not such a bad thing if your woman's shit testing you and you're getting into arguments, right? Or rather, not such a good thing is what I mean to say. Because she's certainly not the enemy, but you're going to respond to her in an agitated, high beta wavelength state. That means you'll snap at her, you'll get verbally abusive. And then guess what? If she has anxiety too, or some trauma, or if she's just being a woman and being hyper emotional, she may be in a high beta state as well. And I don't mean beta as an alpha beta, as in terms of males, all right? I'm talking about just the brain waves, all right? Highly agitated state is where that anxiety will put you. So she's snapping at you, you're snapping at her, and now you have toxicity and everything can implode. Well, she relies on you for stability and to be the rock. So you can't be in a high agitated beta state. And guess what? In combat, you shouldn't be in that state either, because that high anxiety state is not a peak performance state. Better state to be in is to be in a low beta alpha state. Now, again, I'm not talking about the alpha male thing. I'm talking about just the brain waves, but that's aroused and alert, but in control. And so through controlling breathing for combat and thinking about breathing, and actually what happens is you bring your heart rate down too. You put your brain into, their brain wants to spike into a emergency fight or flight panic mode. And you bring that panic, which is that high beta state, down, and you bring those wavelengths down into this alpha state or low beta state at the highest, which would be just, again, alert, aroused, peak state, but not crossing the line. Now, in your relationship, you're not going to want to necessarily be even in a low beta state. It's not combat, but putting yourself in a alpha state, which is more or less a calm, cool, but alert state, that's a good state to be in if it's a stressful situation with another human being in the civilian side. So the question is, how do you practice getting your brain and your brain waves under control? And the answer is breathing and meditation exercises. Okay, this is verified by the Harvard neurology department. It's something that they were doing a lot of research on. It wasn't woo-woo stuff. Okay, it wasn't bullshit. It was the recipe for keeping control. And guess what? If you're an alpha male and you want to be that, and you want to be her rock in the relationship, that means that you are in this calm, cool, uncertain state most of the time. Even if you get angry, or even if you have to put her in her place, or even if you have to set a hard boundary, you do it with love, and you do it with alertness and with control, because your brain is operating in a certain, with a mindset of certainty, which is derived from this alpha, calmer state versus a beta, high, anxious state. Okay? So you get there through meditation and practicing bringing those brain waves down. In meditation, you might bring your brain waves from that beta state or the alpha state, or just even just a normal state, into a theta state, down even to a gamma state if you can get really deep into meditation. But gamma is more like sleep, but theta is more like you're daydreaming, very even, very alert, but very relaxed state. But what you're doing is you're practicing relaxing, but you're not just relaxing to chill. You're actually bringing those brain waves down. And it's critical to be able to do that under stress, whether you're in combat or whether you are in an argument with your spouse or your girlfriend, right? So it behooves you to get on the meditation train, especially if you have trauma, anxiety, or PTSD. Now, if you have trauma and anxiety, guess what? Your brain's going to be doing this. If you're used to operating in an anxious state, you're in a beta, high beta state when you're awake most of the time. Your brain is going like this. Okay? And you're agitated easily. When I would get in that state, when I was in that state for a rather long time, due to just stress and life stressors and trauma-based reactions, the last thing I wanted to do was do a deep breathing exercise for 60 seconds, let alone 5 minutes, let alone 10. But by doing that every day, that's what's going to control and bring your mind into focus. Because when you're in that high beta anxious state, it's not in focus. And it's high stress, and your decision making is compromised. You're hyper aggressive, hyper, anxious, and you can't function well in that state. So I've been just in my own practice every single morning. I actually go to a church every morning now. That's part of my morning routine. I do a workout, a run. I do, I do a bunch of different things. Workout, run, usually do some writing. I go over my schedule for the day, and then before I do anything else, after doing like my hygiene and all that and getting my stuff ready, I have a church that's very near where I live. And it doesn't need to be a church, but the act of me going to the church means that I'll do it. If I just kind of do it in the house, for me, I might get lazy and not do it. My mind might have a tendency to race or feel overwhelmed with tasks and all that. So I go to that church and I go to that quiet place and I do my breathing exercises. I get rid of negative thoughts, put myself in more of a peak state, but I bring those brain waves into focus, under control. And I start off every single day like that. Now I do. I didn't do that before. And I could tell the difference when I didn't do that before too. So I used to think I was all very pragmatic and utilitarian. Well, is this going to make me a better, a more effective in combat? Cool. Otherwise, I don't care. And then you hear about people meditating and stuff, and you think, it's bullshit, and it's woo-woo stuff, and I'm not interested, right? But when you look at warriors and people who are of warrior class, whether it was in Europe, whether it was in Japan, wherever it may be, even the Vikings, they had practices where they would do a form of meditation or prayer or ritual of some sort on a regular basis, putting themselves into this lower brainwave state, learning how to control and manage these brainwaves. And what they did was a primitive way of controlling and managing anxiety. If you have ADHD, for example, this is something you should be doing all the time. All right? It'll help give you the dopamine in your brain that you need, and it'll help get you into a different set of brain waves so you can focus better. It won't cure your ADHD, but it will help you. But if you have any anxiety, any PTSD, these things are going to put you in an uncertain, erratic state, and your woman will see that and she won't respect you as a decision maker. And then you'll lose her, or she'll just be unhappy with you. So you want her to be happy, and you want to be happy too. I highly suggest you look into this. Start off with 5 minutes a day. You don't have to spend hours and hours a day, okay? Just do 5 minutes. Build it to 10. But if you can spare 10 to 15 minutes once a day, it's going to change your life. All right? And as far as relationships and dealing with women is concerned, or dealing with your partner is concerned, actually, whether you're male or female, if you can learn how to do this and practice this, you'll bring a level of calm and certainty into your relationship, and it'll be much better for you and your partner. So when you go through those hard times, you go through that stress, you can maintain that even mind state, which makes it easier for you and your partner to actually love each other, care about each other, because you're not in this agitated, angry, erratic set of brainwaves, running your life. So take that for what it's worth. I mean, it's no I guess, accident that all these things come into play. The science is there. It's being used to treat PTSD. It's being used in therapy, forms of meditation, self-hypnosis, things like that, to bring these brainwaves down. So instead of rejecting the idea or being stubborn or being ridiculous, add it into your life and see what happens, okay? I want you to have happy relationships. I want you to have a happy life and to level yourself up. This is something that's a key component that I neglected for a long time, even when I logically knew I shouldn't be. Well, I promise you it'll help you. All right, thanks again. Have a good night.